Imagine living in a world where fear was not an enemy, but a companion quietly shaping every choice you made. Good evening, tonight. Allow yourself to drift gently into a distant past. Past shaped by two very different worlds, yet bound together by the same shadow we know so well. Today, fear. Fear of dishonor, fear of death, fear of failing to meet the impossible expectations of society. These fears once guided the hands of warriors, philosophers, and rulers alike. As we listen together in this quiet space between wakefulness and sleep, we may discover that their struggles echo softly but unmistakably in our own anxious hearts. This is not a tale of clashing swords or shouts on the battlefield. Instead, it is a slow, measured reflection on the rhythms of discipline and doubt, of the ways people long ago met fear not with denial, but with ritual, philosophy, and quiet acceptance. Over the next couple of hours, we'll wander through for chapters. First, the silent, often muddy life of the samurai foot soldier. Then, the remarkable calm with which both Stoic philosophers and samurai confronted the certainty of death. For that, we'll uncover the quiet messages left behind on steel and parchment alike. And finally, we'll look at those who seem to have everything, the shoguns of Japan and the senators of Rome, and see that even at the height of power, the mind is never truly free from fear. So, find a comfortable position, breathe in slowly, and let us begin, not with grand emperors or noble lords, but with those who stood in the cold mud, waiting for the dawn, the samurai foot soldiers. Close your eyes and imagine yourself in 16th century Japan. You are not a lord dressed in silk, nor a renowned swordsman famed in the epics. You are an ashigaru, a foot soldier, one among thousands, anonymous, replaceable, yet vital to your master's power. The day begins long before sunrise. The night air is cold, almost sharp against your skin, and your straw sandals, waraji, do little to keep the chill from creeping into your bones. Round you, hundreds of others stir from uneasy sleep. There's no chatter, only the sound of armor plates clinking softly as they're tied into place. Armor itself is no elaborate lacquered masterpiece, but a simple cuirass of iron plates laced together with rawhide cords stiffened by sweat and dust. It scratches at your shoulders and weighs heavily on your back. The cords are rough, and the iron always feels colder than you expect. The roads you march are rarely smooth. You move through sticky mud after a night of rain, or along narrow mountain paths where one misstep could send you tumbling into the dark. The sun offers little comfort, for under its glare, the iron of your armor burns against your skin. Hunger is constant, a familiar companion rather than a passing discomfort. Your meals are little more than handfuls of half-cooked rice and dried fish, eaten quickly and silently. Sometimes there isn't even that. At night, you lie awake under thin shelter, the smell of damp earth and sweat heavy in the air. The rhythmic snoring of your comrades is broken by coughs, whispers, or the distant howl of wind through the trees. You might remember family far away, or wonder if your name will ever be written in the chronicles, or if you'll vanish, forgotten in muddy fields. Yet the fear that walks beside you is not only of death by sword or arrow, it is fear of dishonor, of fleeing in panic and disgracing your name forever. The teachings drilled into you insist that a short life of loyalty is better than a long life marked by shame. Harsh discipline keeps this fear alive. A commander's rebuke can sting as sharply as a blade, and punishment, sometimes death, awaits those who fail to obey. Through it all, there is a rhythm: march, fight, serve, endure. Your days blend together, broken only by the rare, bright moment when a small kindness, a shared flask of sake, a quiet song reminds you that you are human too. And still, dawn always returns, bringing another day of mud, silence, and the quiet terror of battle that waits just beyond the horizon. Soft transition music begins, a single flute note held gently over deep strings. In the next chapter, we'll leave the muddy fields behind and step into the minds of those who face the ultimate fear, the moment of death itself. We'll meet Seneca, the Stoic philosopher commanded to die, and samurai from whom death was not an enemy, but an accepted guest. Tonight, let us step away from the muddy roads of the foot soldier and into candlelit chambers where death did not come as a surprise, but as an expected guest. We begin in ancient Rome, in the villa of Lucius Annaeus Seneca. Seneca, a philosopher of the Stoic school, was once advisor to Emperor Nero. His words taught calm in the face of suffering, the acceptance of fate, and the quiet discipline of the mind. Yet even a man of words could not always guide the will of an emperor. One day in the year 65 CE, Seneca received an imperial message accused of conspiracy. He must end his own life. History tells us that Seneca met this command with a measured calm. He embraced his family, offering words of comfort rather than seeking them. Then, according to Tacitus, he slit the veins of his arms. The blood flowed slowly, so he drank poison and finally entered a warm bath to hasten death. It is said that as he felt life fading, he dictated his final thoughts to those near him, still teaching even in his last hour. To Seneca, death was not a terror to be avoided, but a release to be accepted. Stoic philosophy held that fear arises from false judgment, that by recognizing death as a natural event, one could live free from its shadow. His was not a painless passing, yet the serenity he displayed, the steady voice, the final words, has echoed across centuries as a testament to Stoic courage. Pause, gentle shift in music, coda strings come forward. Far across the sea and centuries later, a different ritual was born from different values, yet shared the same embrace of death. In feudal Japan, the ritual of seppuku, sometimes called harakiri, was a controlled ceremonial suicide. For samurai, to face death voluntarily was to reclaim lost honor or to demonstrate loyalty beyond doubt. It was an act performed in silence before witnesses, with calmness praised above all. The samurai would write a final poem, a death verse, often just for lines, reflecting acceptance, regret, or hope. Kneeling on a mat, he would open his own belly with a short blade, and a trusted companion, the kaishakunin, would end the suffering with a swift cut to the neck. From the outside, it seems unthinkable. Yet within the samurai-esque code, Bushido, it was the ultimate expression of control to choose the moment of death and to do so without trembling. This ritual, so far into our modern hearts, was rooted in the same human question that haunted Seneca. How does one meet the end, not with panic, but with clarity? Both Stoics and samurai taught that preparation for death was not morbid, but liberating. For Seneca, it was a mental discipline; for the samurai, a physical ritual. Yet both sought the same quiet, triumph over fear. Soft background music fades to a slow whine-like sound, suggesting thoughts drifting. Tonight, as we listen far from emperors and warlords, we might ask ourselves, what does it mean to live in such a way that, if tomorrow were our last, we could meet it without regret? And what would it feel like to hold death so close that it loses its power to terrify? Short pause, gentle chime sounds. In our next chapter, we'll leave the chambers of death and step into quieter places, exploring secret inscriptions on swords and quiet letters left behind, words written to remind themselves and perhaps us how to keep fear at bay. So far, we've walked muddy roads beside the anonymous Ashigaru, and we've stood beside the great, as they faced death with composed resolve. Yet courage was not always proclaimed in grand speeches or heroic last stands. Often it lived quietly, hidden in words carved into cold steel, or scribbled on scraps of parchment. Let us turn now to these quiet traces, reminders that even the bravest needed to remind themselves. Imagine a katana resting in its scabbard by a samurai's sleeping mat. To outsiders, it is only a weapon, but to its owner, it is more than steel. It is a silent companion, a bearer of prayers and fears. Some smiths inscribe short phrases on the tang, the part of the blade hidden by the hilt. Simple words, munin mus, no thought, no regret. Or a family motto urging the owner to stand firm in the moment of fear. These inscriptions were never meant to impress an audience. They were meant to be felt by the hand that held the sword, unseen reminders for the heart that might hesitate. Imagine on the eve of battle a samurai unsheathing his blade just slightly, running a thumb across the hidden words. A private prayer, a whispered resolve. Remember who you are. Do not fear. Across the seas, in the libraries and villas of Rome, a different kind of steel was forged. Words. Seneca wrote letters to his young friend Lucilius. These letters, gentle yet stern, were meant to be read slowly, perhaps at night, by lamplight when fear is strongest. We suffer more often in imagination than in reality, he wrote, reminding Lucilius and us that worry itself often wounds us deeper than the event we fear. Epictetus, once a slave, kept his reminders simple and direct. You may fetter my leg, but my will remains free. They wrote not as distant sages, but as men who struggle daily with doubt. Their letters are small acts of rebellion against the mind, as darker corridors, signposts pointing back toward calm. Though separated by oceans and centuries, samurai inscriptions and Stoic letters share something profound: repetition. To engrave words on steel or to copy them by hand onto parchment is to remind oneself over and over. Fear will come, but I know its name, and I know it will pass. These words are not magic charms. They do not erase fear, but in the silence before dawn or the moment just before speaking hard truths, they help steady trembling hands. Even today, some keep words on their desks, on phone screens, or tattooed on skin, short reminders, this too shall pass, or amor fati, love of fate. They are modern inscriptions born from the same ancient impulse. To hold courage close, not as loud boast, but as a private vow. And perhaps in moments of fear, big or small, we do the same. We repeat words that mean something only to us. Words that steady the breath, slow the heart, and quiet the mind. In the final part of our journey tonight, we will step into the halls of power to see how fear follows even those who seem untouchable, the shoguns of Japan and the senators of Rome. For even at the highest heights, the human heart is never free from shadows. The music deepens, a slow, resonant drum under soft shakuhachi flute and faint Roman lyre notes blending east and west. Until now, we've walked beside the common and the contemplative, the foot soldier whose name would be forgotten, and the philosopher whose words endured. But now we step quietly into the candlelit chambers and marbled halls of those at the very top, shoguns of Japan and senators of Rome, and see that fear, though dressed in finer robes, still sat close at hand. Imagine the great hall of Edo Castle. Paper lanterns flicker softly, throwing golden light across painted screens of cranes and pine trees. The Tokugawa shogun, supreme military ruler of Japan, sits in quiet ceremony. From outside, it seems serene, ordered, controlled, perfected through centuries of ritual. But behind that calm mask lay relentless pressure. The shogun's fear was rarely of death in battle. Few saw war firsthand, rather. It was fear of betrayal, of plots whispered behind sliding doors, of rivals stirring unrest in distant provinces. To maintain peace, the Tokugawa imposed elaborate systems. Daimyo lords were forced to spend every other year in Edo, leaving their families there as quiet hostages, a practice called Senkin-katai. Palaces became cages of gold and lacquer, where each move, each word was measured. Cost of absolute power was absolute vigilance. The senators uneasy seat across seas and centuries in marble halls beneath coffered ceilings, Roman senators faced their own silent terrors. The statues outside proclaimed Rome eternal. Within the Senate walls, alliances shifted daily. A single word could mean exile, ruin, or death. A glance from the emperor, Augustus, Tiberius, or Nero could end a career or a life. Senators donned their broad striped togas and spoke noble words of virtue and statecraft. But in private, letters reveal worry of family disgrace, confiscated estates, poisoned wine at a banquet. Even Cicero, the famed orator, wrote of trembling hands before major speeches, of fear not only of failure, but of power's deadly gaze. Fear draped in silk and marble. Power did not protect them from fear. It refined it, redirected it. For a foot soldier, fear was an arrow in flight. For a shogun or senator, it was a rumor, a letter, an unexpected visitor at dawn. They feared less for life itself and more for loss of face, family, and fragile legacies. They built walls of ritual and marble, kept scrolls of laws and genealogies, and yet still slept lightly, haunted by what could crumble overnight. The timeless lesson. In this contrast, the commoner has blunt dread and the ruler has elegant anxiety. Lies an old truth. Fear does not vanish with wealth or rank. It changes shape, whispers instead of roars, but it remains. Seneca wrote, "No one is so brave that he is not disturbed by something unexpected." The samurai called it mono no aware, an awareness of the fragile beauty of things, and the sorrow that comes from knowing they may pass. And so, even at the pinnacle of status, the Stoic and the samurai teachings mattered still. To know fear, name it, and live alongside it rather than let it rule unseen. Music softens, a single flute note trailing into silence. And now, dear listener, as our long reflection draws to a close, let us pause for a final thought. Fear is not an enemy to be slain, nor a weakness to be scorned. It is part of being human, a shadow that walks beside us. The Stoics, the samurai, the scribes, the rulers all faced it. And through words, rituals, and reminders, they found ways to live without letting fear decide everything. Tonight, as you drift into sleep, perhaps ask yourself, what words do I carry for courage? What silent vows steady my heart? And can I greet tomorrow's uncertainty, not with denial, but with calm acceptance? For in that quiet acceptance, there is a freedom older than any empire. Music fades into a gentle breeze, a final soft chime sounds. Good night. Close your eyes and let us walk together into chambers few ever entered, the private worlds of those who ruled empires. It is easy to imagine power as an unbreakable shield, gold-plated armor, tall walls of stone, loyal guards posted at every gate, yet power often hides a more delicate truth. The higher you climb, the more fragile the balance becomes, and the quieter, yet sharper, the fears that follow. The Shogun's silent burden shed characters urging stillness of mind round him. Trusted advisors wait, silent and motionless, their gazes lowered. To rule Japan meant balancing 1,000 tensions, keeping powerful daimyo content yet contained, managing rice harvests that fed millions, quelling uprisings before they could take root. The fear the shogun faced was rarely the roar of battlefield charge. It was the whisper of a letter carried by a trembling messenger, or the chill that followed an unexpected visitor asking for an audience. Imagine the shogun waking before dawn, sitting quietly on a tatami mat as incense curls through the air. His mind, disciplined through years of ritual, still drifts toward unspoken anxieties. Will today bring a rebellion? Betrayal by someone once trusted? A drought, a flood, a famine? Even at the center of a carefully balanced realm, peace was never promised. Then Rome's marble halls, now let us leave Edo as cedar halls and step into ancient Rome, into the Senate house under a painted sky of gods and heroes. Columns of white marble gleam in morning light. Senators gather, draped in broad striped togas whose folds must be arranged just so, signaling wealth and dignity, yet behind their solemn debates, each man guards private fears. A careless phrase might be twisted into treason. A rival's rumor could mean exile to a windswept island. The emperor's fleeting displeasure could bring ruin overnight. They speak in measured tones, invoking the glory of the republic and the virtue of the ancestors. But letters we find, scraps of papyrus, passages in personal diaries, reveal nights spent awake, hearts pounding over rumors and unseen plots. Cicero, brilliant and quick-witted, wrote of trembling before a great speech. Even Seneca, counselor to emperors, confessed in private lines that worry still shadowed his thoughts. To hold power in Rome was to wear a mask of iron calm, while the mind remained painfully aware of its own vulnerability. Fear and silk and marble, though separated by language, culture, and centuries, the shogun and the senator shared a silent truth. Fear did not vanish with wealth, education, or rank. It simply grew quieter, subtler, hidden behind ritual law and ceremony. A peasant's fear might be hunger, disease, or conscription. The shogun feared revolt from vassals. The senator feared the emperor's sudden wrath. Yet in each case, fear kept the mind watchful, the nights restless. In the polished floor of Edo Castle and the mosaic tiles of the Curia Julia, one might glimpse the same truth. The higher the walls built against fear, the deeper it seeps into the heart. Seneca taught that acceptance, amor fati, a love of fate, could transform fear into calm resolve. Samurai texts spoke of muka, a loss of ego, and mono no aware, a gentle awareness of life's impermanence. Both schools of thought advise preparation, reflection, and, above all, honesty with oneself, to see fear not as shameful, but as an unavoidable companion on the path. Imagine the shogun, in quiet evening hours, copying calligraphy to still his mind, or the senator, pacing marble floors, silently repeating Stoic maxims. What is outside my control is not to be feared. Death comes equally for emperors and slaves. Power may command armies, write laws, and shape history, yet it cannot command peace of mind. Why this still matters even today. We often believe success, wealth, or status will finally silence our worries, yet the stories of shoguns and senators whisper otherwise. Fear changes its mask, but never truly disappears. It waits behind titles, beneath crowns, within even the grandest halls. Perhaps true courage, as the ancients taught, is not to rid ourselves of fear entirely, but to see it clearly, to name it, and to choose our actions gently despite its whisper. As you lie here tonight, listening to these distant echoes of power and fragility, let your breath slow. Feel the rise and fall of your chest, steady as ancient temple drums. Remember, even the mightiest among us feared the dawn, and yet dawn always came. What fear visits you quietly at night? What words or rituals help you see it, hold it, and soften its edge? And can you greet tomorrow not as an enemy to defeat, but as a guest to welcome whatever it brings? In this gentle acceptance, as Stoics and samurai both knew, there is a freedom deeper than power, and a peace stronger than fear. Good night. May your dreams be calm, your heart steady, and your fears for tonight at rest. Close your eyes and picture once more the world of those who seem to have everything. Beyond the gates guarded day and night, beyond the lacquered screens, silk robes, and marble columns, there lies a truth so quiet that it was rarely spoken aloud. Even at the center of power, the human heart remains vulnerable, and fear, though it whispers softly, never truly leaves. The Shogun's vigil. Imagine the Shogun's residence at night. Lanterns glow softly along polished corridors. Outside, the garden is hushed. Koi fish barely ripple the surface of still ponds reflecting the moon. Inside, the Shogun sits alone in a small study, a scroll unfurled before him. By candlelight he traces calligraphy with practiced strokes, each brush movement an attempt to still the restless mind. The Okagawa shogunate had kept peace in Japan for over 2 centuries, yet peace, as history teaches, must be guarded more carefully than war. The shogun's fear was not of enemy armies at the gates. It was of discontent brewing quietly among daimyo lords, of famine turning farmers into rebels, of a single spark undoing decades of delicate balance. To the outside world, he was Bakufu, the tent government, whose authority stretched across islands, but inside he was still a man who, at dawn, felt the same tightening of the chest that fear brings. Imagine in moments of doubt the shogun repeating silent words taught by Zen. Monks like clouds passing across the moon, so to pass anxious thoughts. And though the title of shogun was passed from father to son, peace of mind could not be inherited. Senators in marble shadows now, let us return to Rome's marble Senate House, where statues of past heroes gazed down in silent judgment. Senators walked across mosaic floors, robes trailing behind them, symbols of order and dignity, but history's glow hides uneasy truths. Rumors swirling in taverns at dusk, letters sent by informants, each word carrying mortal risk. Under emperors like Tiberius or Nero, fear was sharpened to a fine point. A senator could be ordered to end his life by dawn, his family's fortune seized before sunset. They spoke grandly of virtues, and impetus, courage, and duty. Yet many spent sleepless nights pacing candlelit halls, wondering if tomorrow's decree would bear their name. Imagine the cold touch of marble against their palms as they steadied themselves before speaking. The echo of sandals on stone, a reminder that every step could be the last. Fear dressed in ceremony among the powerful. Fear did not shout. It whispered behind layers of ritual and formality. In Edo, court ceremonies stretched for hours, each bow, each word scripted to perfection. Theater masking silent tension. In Rome, the sentence debates, rich in oratory and law, hid private calculations of loyalty and survival. Both worlds shared an understanding. Fear could not be banished, so it must be contained, managed, ritualized. Yet the cost of this containment was heavy. Constant alertness, the need to read subtle shifts in tone, glance, and rumor. To rule was to live in a house of mirrors, never knowing which reflection might shatter. Personal rituals against fear, despite power's cold weight, even rulers found small, private ways to soothe the heart. A shogun before dawn might sit in zazen, silent meditation, seeking stillness in breath and posture. A Roman senator might copy Stoic maxims onto wax tablets. Memento mori, remember you must die. Fortune rules nothing but the body, the soul is its own master. These words and rituals were not grand pronouncements, but quiet shields against unseen terrors. They were reminders that fear is most dangerous when ignored and most gentle when acknowledged. Modern reflections. And so, across time and continents, we see the same pattern. The higher the walls built against fear, the deeper its roots can twist within. Today, we may not hold titles like shogun or senator, but modern power wears new faces, corporate leadership, public fame, wealth, or influence. And still, beneath tailored suits and confident smiles, the heart knows the same tremors. Will I fail? Will they turn against me? Will tomorrow undo all I have built? The lesson whispered by history is tender, not harsh, that fear cannot be completely defeated, only recognized, softened, and guided. A shared humanity in the polished floor of Edo Castle and the Senate's marble tiles. We see not just grandeur, but the human vulnerability behind power. Even the mightiest live by dawn's same pale light. Even they lay awake in the small hours, listening to whine against paper walls or stone. In the end, the difference between a ruler and the ruled was not the absence of fear, but how they carried it. Some masked it with cruelty, some softened it with ritual, Some faced it with words written in steel or ink. A gentle question for tonight. And so, dear listener, as you lie here in quiet reflection, what do you fear? In the quiet hours of your own life, what gentle rituals, a whispered prayer, a repeated word, a steady breath help you carry that fear without letting it decide everything? If even the rulers of empires could find a kind of peace, invite you to find yours not by fighting fear, but by welcoming it as a companion on the path. Here, history reminds us is ancient and universal. Yet so too is courage, not the roaring kind, but the quiet kind, a breath taken before dawn. Word repeated in darkness, a vow made silently to oneself. And perhaps that quiet courage is the truest kind of strength, softer than iron, but stronger than stone. A meditative farewell tonight as you drift towards sleep. Remember, power cannot promise peace, but awareness, acceptance, and gentle ritual can bring a stillness deeper than any crown. May your fears become known, your breath become calm, and your spirit rest, if only for tonight. Good night. Lose your eyes, dear listener, and let us walk slowly together into the heart of quiet chambers history rarely shows us. Past gates guarded by men who will not speak your name. Past walls so high they shut out not only armies, but sometimes even the sky. And there, in the hush beyond power's grand facades, we find the same thing we find everywhere there are human hearts, a quiet, constant fear, patiently waiting. Edo Castle at night, power wears silence. It is late in Edo Castle. The lamps have burned low, the corridors stretch in silent darkness. Paper walls soften the moonlight so it enters in silver stripes across polished floors. Outside, beyond curved tile roofs, the city sleeps, fishermen in their huts, shopkeepers in narrow streets. But here, at the center of power, the night never fully rests. The shogun sits alone in a private chamber. Before him, an inkstone, a folded letter, a single candle flickering gently. In his hand, a calligraphy brush trembles just slightly, a sign few would notice, but the shogun himself feels. Words flow onto rice paper in deliberate, steady lines, short reflections copied from Zen monks. A single breath in stillness can calm 1,000 restless thoughts. Outside this room, thousands of men stand ready to act at his command. Within, the shogun contemplates what no army can shield him from, whispers of rebellion in distant province. Rising rice prices that could spark famine and unrest. The knowledge that trust, once lost, can never fully return. The weight of ceremony in daytime, power in Edo Castle moves slowly, clothed in ritual, long formal audiences where each bow, each step, each word is scripted. Even the simplest gesture carries weight. A misstep might seem trivial to outsiders, but in a world where face and honor are everything, it could plant seeds of doubt in watchful minds. For the shogun, each morning begins before sunrise. Soft chanting echoes through corridors as retainers ready the halls. Silken robes are arranged precisely, hair bound neatly. The mind steadied for a day of words weighed and watched. Fear here is not the rush of danger, but a slow, steady drumbeat. Not of swords drawn, but of trust eroding, of balance tipping, of history's judgment. A walk in the Roman Senate at dusk now. Let us leave the wooden stillness of Edo and cross Time's river to marble floors under a Roman sky. It is dusk. The last rays of sun catch on the carved faces of gods and emperors above. The Senate chamber is quieter now. Debates have ended. Senators walk the colonnade in pairs or alone, robes trailing lightly across mosaic tiles. Some discuss politics in low voices. Others watch shadows lengthen across the forum, each lost in private worry. Among them, Cicero once walked, rehearsing speeches in his mind, repeating lines under his breath until they felt like armor. Not armor against swords, but against rumor, envy, and the sudden chill of imperial displeasure. Even the great Stoic Seneca knew this dusk well, a time when the city slowed, but thoughts did not. When the weight of tomorrow pressed gently on the chest. Private rituals of the powerful at night in private villas beyond Rome's walls, senators read and wrote by lamplight. Some copied Stoic texts as monks later would copy sutras. We suffer more in imagination than in reality. Death is nothing to fear, for it comes to all. These words were not written to impress others. They were confessions and reminders, letters to themselves. In Edo, too, the shogun's calligraphy at dawn was not for court display. It was meditation in ink, the slow, deliberate movement of brush against paper, each stroke breathing calm into anxious hours. Fear beneath silk and marble, the shogun's fear had different names: betrayal, famine, loss of face. The senator's fear had different shadows: exile, confiscation, disgrace. Yet the feeling itself, the quickening pulse, the tightness in the chest, the mind turning over what-ifs in the dark, is something timeless. Across cultures, power built walls, castles of stone, palaces of wood and gold, titles and laws. But no wall ever fully keeps out the silent guest that visits before dawn. My fear could never be banished. Both Stoics and samurai understood a truth we often resist, that fear is woven into life itself. Seneca taught that preparation and reflection could soften its sting, not by denying it, but by greeting it as familiar. Samurai philosophy spoke of muga, loss of ego, and mono no aware, the gentle sadness of impermanence. Together, these were not cures, but companions, ways to walk alongside fear without letting it steer every choice. Dawn in Edo and Rome, shared solitude. Imagine Dawn in Edo Castle, the shogun, the stillness around him. Brush in hand, exhaling slowly as temple bells echo through mist. Imagine Dawn outside Rome, a senator on a villa terrace staring at distant hills, reciting lines from Epictetus under his breath. Two worlds never meeting, two men never knowing each other, yet both speaking quietly to the same guest, fear. Modern reflections. Today, we might wear no crowns, hold no senatorial seats, command no armies. Yet fear walks beside us just as it did them. Fear of failure, of loss, of being misunderstood. Fear that what we've built could crumble overnight. Like them, we often look outward to walls, routines, or power, hoping they will shield us. Yet history whispers gently, it is not the walls that bring peace, but the practice of naming fear, meeting it each dawn and continuing anyway. Power of quiet reminders across centuries. Some found comfort in words written and reread until they felt like prayer. On a sword's hidden tang, a simple phrase, no thought, no regret. On Roman scrolls, lines copied again and again, remember you must die. Not to summon dread, but to remember that fear loses power when seen clearly. A slow conclusion, and so, as our long nights walk through marble halls and cedar corridors draws near its end, we see the lesson both Stoics and samurai left for us. Power does not bring peace of mind. Peace is found in quieter places, breath, reflection, acceptance. To fear is human. To see fear, greet it gently and live onward, that is courage. Softer than steel, but stronger than stone. Tonight, as you lie in stillness, you might ask yourself, what fear visits me quietly at night? What words, gestures, or breath help me see it not as an enemy, but as a passing guest? And can I greet tomorrow, not with denial, but with a calm that history's quiet voices still teach us to find? Wind rises softly, as if carrying away the last words. Music fades. May your fears rest lightly tonight. May your breath slow, your heart steady, and may you wake tomorrow with the quiet strength shared by those who ruled worlds, yet knew deeply what it meant to be human. Good night. Stay here with me a little longer, dear listener. The night has not yet ended, and in these last, quiet hours before dawn, let us walk deeper into the shadows of power, where fear wears many faces. The hidden rooms beyond the grand audience chambers of Edo Castle lay smaller, almost forgotten rooms. Rooms where advisors met in whispers, sliding doors barely open. Rooms where scrolls were stored, records of rice harvests, treaties with distant domains, secret reports from traveling spies. Here, the shogun's fear was not of swords drawn in sudden rage, but of numbers that did not add up, of rumors drifting upriver from Kyoto, of news of bandit raids in provinces too far to control directly. Imagine him at night, listening to a retainer read these reports aloud by lamplight. The flame trembles slightly, and with it, the shadow of 1,000 what-ifs dances on the paper wall. The shogun's hand rests on a sheathed sword, not to draw it, but as a gesture of grounding, a reminder of responsibility heavier than steel. The courtyard after debate. In Rome, after a long Senate session, a senator might linger in a shaded courtyard, marble cool underfoot even in summer heat. He watches sparrows fluttering between columns, the sound of a distant fountain blending with his thoughts. The debates are over, but worry lingers. What did that sharp question mean? Why did an ally avert his eyes? Could tomorrow bring an accusation whispered too loudly? He touches the folds of his toga, feeling the texture of wool beneath his fingers as if to remind himself, I am still here. I still belong. Yet belonging in Rome was never guaranteed. Stories of the almost forgotten history remembers emperors and shoguns, but rarely the hundreds of men whose names filled scrolls and stone inscriptions, whose fears were quieter but no less sharp. A young daimyo's first night in Edo, lying awake in a guest room, wondering if his retinue has offended the court. A minor senator from the provinces, voice shaking as he rises to speak. Be for Rome's greatest names, both might leave no mark in history books, yet in these unrecorded hearts, fear and courage intertwine every dawn. Power's loneliness. There is a loneliness that comes with power rarely spoken aloud. To rule, whether over provinces or senatorial votes, is to hold secrets too heavy to share even with family. Imagine the shogun walking the castle garden paths before sunrise, lantern light catching dew on pine needles. Imagine the senators standing on a balcony overlooking the forum, the city quiet under early dawn sky. They may seem surrounded by people, retainers, guards, advisors, yet in crucial moments, the final decision belongs to them alone. And that solitude deepens fear's voice. What if I choose wrongly? What if what I fear most is already happening, unseen? Quiet courage, yet both Roman and Japanese traditions taught that courage was not absence of fear, but the decision to act calmly despite it. The shogun might sit in zazen at dawn, counting breaths, acknowledging the restless mind without trying to silence it. The senator might copy again by lamplight. A line from Epictetus: do not seek to have events happen as you wish, but wish them to happen as they do, and you will have peace. These were not grand gestures, they were small, daily acts: calligraphy, reading, silent contemplation. Acts so ordinary they rarely appear in chronicles, yet these quiet rituals shaped how rulers faced the day. Modern echoes even now, far from marble halls or cedar corridors. Fear still finds us, before a difficult conversation, at the edge of an important choice, alone in the night. When tomorrow's uncertainties feel closer than breath, we too may try to build walls, digital distractions, busy schedules, outward confidence. Yet history whispers gently, no wall is high enough. The path to come runs inward, not outward. The gift of reflection as dawn nears. Imagine the shogun setting aside his brush, the senator closing his scroll. They know that today may bring news neither wants to hear. Yet by meeting fear, naming it, writing it, breathing through it, they step into the day steadier than before. Perhaps this is power's truest lesson, not control over others, but mastery of one's own restless mind. An invitation for you. So tonight, as you listen, ask yourself softly, what fear visits me quietly before sleep? What small ritual, a word repeated, a breath counted, a line copied might help me greet it gently instead of fighting it? And tomorrow, when worries return, as they always do, might you remember the shogun with his calligraphy, the senator with his scroll. Their power did not silence fear, but their daily, mindful ritual softened its sharpest edges. Fear remains, but so does the possibility of calm acceptance, and in that quiet acceptance, even the most restless night can soften into rest. Tonight, may you find your own quiet practice, as simple or small as needed, a whispered phrase, a steady breath, a memory of those who ruled nations yet still fear dawn. May your heart rest lighter for a while, and may you wake tomorrow not without fear, but able to walk beside it in peace. Good night, when even the grandest palace holds its breath. In these moments, the difference between a ruler and a commoner disappears. Both lie awake, listening to the same small voice of worry. The shogun's night walk. Imagine the shogun restless, stepping softly through the inner garden. Stone lanterns glow with dying embers. Pine branches, heavy with dew, arch over winding paths of gravel and moss. Each step crunches lightly, a sound so small, yet loud in the hush of night. To outsiders, the shogun seems untouchable, supreme general, heir to centuries of rule. Yet here, he is simply a man walking through darkness, wondering, have I done enough? Will tomorrow reveal mistakes already made? His hand rests lightly on his sword's hilt, not from fear of attack, but from habit, from the weight of duty. Above, the moon drifts behind thin clouds, as if turning away. The senator's private garden now. Across centuries, let us step into a Roman villa outside the city walls. Beyond marble columns, a private courtyard garden waits in near silence. Olive trees cast shifting shadows over mosaic tiles. A senator, older now, walks slowly along the colonnade. He pauses to touch a carved relief, the face of a forgotten ancestor. Candles flicker inside, but here, under open sky, the air feels clearer. He thinks of tomorrow's debate, of a letter received hinting at imperial displeasure, a family who might suffer if he missteps. Yet for a moment he closes his eyes, breathes the faint scent of cypress, and remembers the Stoic words repeated so often they almost live in his bones. Do what you must. Let come what may. The unseen wait in public. Both men wear masks of composure, silk robes arranged just so, togas, folded to signal dignity and calm. Yet inside, the weight of unseen choices presses on the chest, like a stone carried silently for years. A single decree or careless word could undo decades of balance, an uprising sparked by a rumor, a rival's accusation whispered into the emperor's ear. It is in these private gardens, quiet and dimly lit, they allow themselves to feel the full weight, if only for a breath. Rarely told a story. Most history remembers battles and decrees, marble statues and painted screens. But few remember the silent rituals of rulers at dawn. The shogun copying a single Zen phrase onto rice paper. Clouds come and go, yet the mountain remains. The senator lighting a small oil lamp before a household shrine, offering a pinch of incense to unknown gods. These small acts did not stop rebellions or sway emperors, yet they steadied the hand. That sign scrolls, the voice that spoke in debate, they were not performances, but quiet dialogues with fear itself. Power and loneliness. Imagine the shogun at a banquet, music, laughter, say cups lifted high. Yet even here, a corner of the mind listens for signs of discord or retainers' brief glance. A whispered exchange among guests. Imagine the senator at a crowded feast, golden cups, laughter echoing off marble, yet he wonders who might twist tonight's words into tomorrow's. Weapon. Power surrounds itself with people, yet can feel lonelier than a hermit's cell. Because in the end, responsibility cannot be fully shared, and doubt often feels sharpest in the moments meant for celebration. Echoes in modern life, and what of us centuries later? We may not rule provinces or stand in senate halls, but we too carry fears we rarely speak aloud. Will I be enough? Will tomorrow undo what I built? What do others see when they look at me? Modern palaces may be glass towers or social profiles, or senates may be offices, families, or circles of friends, yet the quiet garden walk, the whispered mantra, the deep breath before dawn, these are timeless. Acceptance, not erasure. Both Stoic teachers and Zen monks warned to fight. Fear as an enemy only gives it more strength. Instead, they taught acceptance. To see fear as passing weather, clouds over a mountain that remains unmoved. The shogun's calligraphy did not erase fear, but named it, shaped it into words he could see and release. The senator as copied scrolls did not banish anxiety, but reminded him it was only part of being alive. A moment of stillness, so, as we stand with them in these moonlit gardens, let us pause. Breathe in cool night air, heavy with cedar and cypress. Breathe out the quiet hum of a restless mind, easing, if only slightly. Feel beneath your feet the solid earth, older than empires, patient beyond kings. Fear may speak, the heart may tremble. Yet for this breath, you are here, and that is enough. Final reflection before dawn. And now, as dawn's first pale light gathers beyond the walls, ask gently, what fear do I carry? Silently, each day, what small ritual, a phrase, a breath, a walk among trees could help me meet it kindly, instead of fleeing? Remember, even those history calls powerful were never free from fear. They learned imperfectly to live beside it. And so may you. Tonight, let this reflection be your own small ritual. May it quiet the mind, may it lighten the heart, and may you drift gently into rest, knowing that to fear is human and to continue anyway, deeply human still. Good night. Stay with me, dear listener. The night still holds stories it wants to share. Beyond the marble and the cedar, past the guards who watch but never speak, there are still quiet corners where history whispers and fear breathes almost gently. The monk who watched emperors pass in Kyoto centuries ago, a monk lived beside the imperial road. Each morning, he swept fallen cherry blossoms from the path. Sometimes he glimpsed processions of emperors and noble courtiers, golden carriages rolling past in stately silence. When asked if he envied their power, he would only smile and say, their robes are heavier than they look. He had no province to rule, no court to please, yet in quiet dawn hours he too wrestled with fear. Have I wasted my life? Am I truly at peace? From the emperor's gilded palanquin to the monk's simple cell, the question was the same. What does it mean to live rightly when tomorrow is never certain? The senator's forgotten son in Rome, a senator's son, educated, ambitious, once stood in the Senate's marble corridor, waiting to hear if he would be given a junior magistrate's office. All his life he had been taught that family honor was everything. Yet behind the family crest hung silent truths, debts unpaid, quiet rivalries, the ever-present risk of imperial suspicion. Night, before knowing his fate, the sun wrote in wax tablet letters, "If I fail, let me still rise again." History never recorded his name. Yet in that line we glimpse a universal hope, that courage might remain even when fortune turns. The unseen dialogues imagine now these rulers and courtiers at night, speaking silently to themselves, the shogun walking beneath lanterns, repeating a Zen phrase, "Let the mind be like a still pond," the senator standing on his balcony, whispering words Seneca once wrote, "If you would be loved, love." These words were not for the world to hear. They were quiet lanterns kept burning in the mind, small lights against darker thoughts. The nature of fear, why does fear cling so stubbornly even to those who seem most secure? Perhaps because power, like wealth, promises protection yet never certainty. And when we see the truth, that tomorrow may yet surprise us, fear is the companion who comes to sit beside us in the dark. Yet the ancient wisdom these rulers sought did not teach banishing fear. Instead, it taught to watch fear gently, to name it, to breathe through it until its sharpness softens, becoming part of life's texture rather than its master. Power's quiet rewards. Not every moment in these rulers' lives was burdened. There were mornings when the shogun watched mist rising over castle ponds, feeling, if only briefly, a calm beyond words. There were evenings when senators dined with family in gardens scented with laurel and thyme, laughter echoing off marble, moments when duty faded. Only breath and sky and presence remained. It is these moments, too, that history rarely records, yet perhaps they mattered most. The thread of humanity across centuries, across continents. Unread remains, no title can silence the small, trembling voice of what if, yet neither can fear fully erase the quieter voice that answers. And if tomorrow comes, I will face it. Between those two voices, life unfolds, uncertain, imperfect, yet deeply human. An invitation to reflect so tonight, as the hour grows late. Let these questions rest gently with you. What small ritual, word, or breath helps you steady your mind? If those who ruled nations found peace only in simple practices, what might you find in your own? Can you meet your own fear, not as an enemy, but as a visitor who, too, will pass? Fear, power, hope, all woven together in the fabric of every human life. As dawn nears, remember, even the most gilded halls echo with the same quiet questions that echo in your own heart. A gentle closing before dawn. Breathe in deeply. Feel the weight of the day recede. Breathe out slowly. Let the mind settle like dust sinking in still water. Tonight, you need not solve every problem nor silence every fear. It is enough to notice them, name them, and rest. As the shogun wrote by candlelight, as the senator whispered under stars, as monks still chant before dawn, all things arise, all things pass. Breathe and begin again. May this reflection be your lantern. May your fears rest lightly tonight, and may you wake tomorrow with a gentler heart. Good night. Come closer, dear listener. We have walked through palaces of power, past silent courtyards and marble halls. Now let us step away beyond the walls, beyond the city, into the mountains, forests, and lonely cells where some fled power entirely, and ask, why do humans across every age sometimes choose to walk away the mountain path at dawn? Imagine narrow stone steps climbing through mist-shrouded cedars. The air is cold, scented with moss and wet earth. Far below, the city is waking, merchants calling, bells ringing, temple drums beating time, yet here the only sound is breath and birdsong. A lone pilgrim ascends. Straw sandals damp with morning dew, robe heavy on tired shoulders. Each step is deliberate, slow, yet also an act of leaving behind noise. Expectation, fear of reputation or failure, the life of a hermit centuries ago. In the mountains of Japan, some men and women chose to vanish from society. They built small huts near waterfalls, lived on rice, herbs, wild roots. By day, they tended small gardens, copied sutras, watched clouds drift across valleys. By night, they listened to wind tapping at bamboo walls, a sound at once empty and endlessly alive. To neighbors in the villages below, these hermits seemed free from fear, almost beyond human concerns, yet even in solitude they, too, wrestled quietly with doubt. Have I truly escaped desire? Do I hide here out of cowardice or wisdom? Why leave the world? Why do humans across time feel the call to step away? For For some, too many disappointments, betrayals, or sorrows in the crowded city. For others, a deeper longing to hear what can only be heard in silence, to discover whether the restless mind grows still when the world's voices fade. Christian hermits of the desert, now let us cross time's river again to the dry winds of Egypt in the 3rd and 4th centuries. Christian hermits called the desert fathers and mothers left towns and villas to live alone. Among dunes and stone, they prayed by moonlight, fasted for days, or brief sayings like pebbles dropped in a vast sea of silence. Their struggles were not with external enemies, but with thoughts that visited unbidden. Anger remembered old regrets, fear of death, fear of failure, and devotion itself. They taught that solitude did not erase fear, but revealed it more clearly, and in seeing fear without turning away, one might, just might, find peace deeper than words. Modern pilgrims, ancient roads. In medieval Europe, pilgrims walked hundreds of miles to Santiago, Rome, Jerusalem. Their roads passed fields of wheat, villages of mud and stone, cathedrals rising like islands of stone. Against the sky, many carried old burdens, grief, guilt, unspoken questions each mile walked was, both a leaving behind and a walking towards something unnamed. Modern travelers, too, sometimes find solace in walking city streets at night, forest paths at dawn. The body moves forward, but the heart steps inward. The fear that follows, yet even the longest road cannot leave fear entirely behind. Pilgrim alone by campfire wonders, what awaits me at journey's end? The hermit at dusk feels a flicker of loneliness sharp as a chill wind. They discover what many rulers found too. Fear is not in cities or palaces alone. It is carried quietly in the chest, what solitude offers still. Solitude gives gifts not found in crowded halls. The space to hear thoughts fully, not as whispers drowned by noise, the patience to sit beside. Fear, watching it rise and fall like a wave. Moments when the mind, if only for a breath, falls silent and something softer stirs. Zen monks called it the sound of one hand clapping. Peace found beyond thought. Stoics called it ataraxia, unshakable calm. Not because life is safe, but because mind learns to see change without panic. The paradox of escape leaving the world does not free us from being human. Yet in leaving, some discover what presence means. The pilgrim returns home changed, not because the road removed fear, but because walking taught acceptance. The hermit's quiet cell becomes not an escape, but a mirror showing the self more clearly and gently. Reflection for the listener tonight. Ask gently, where do I go, in mind or body, to find stillness? What fear follows me even there? And can I sit beside it without asking it to leave? You need not build a hut on a mountain. Even a few slow breaths, a quiet room at night can be your monastery. You leave the mountain path now, but its quiet walks with us. Fear remains, yet so does the choice to meet it kindly, step by step. Closing, may you, too, find your own hermitage, if only for tonight, in breath and reflection, in gentle acceptance of what visits the mind after dark, and may your fears, seen clearly, soften their hold. Good night. Stay with me, dear listener. The night still holds one more road to walk. Let us leave behind even the hermit's mountain hut and set our feet on ancient roads, the dusty paths of pilgrims, exiles, and wanderers, and ask, why, across all centuries, do humans keep walking away, only to long to return? The dusty roads of the Middle Ages picture Europe 1,000 years ago. Pilgrims walk for months across muddy fields, stone bridges, and silent forests toward distant shrines. Some go to give thanks, some to ask forgiveness, some because they cannot stay where they were. At night, they sleep in crowded inns or under hedgerows. In the morning, they rise stiff, shoulders aching from the weight of a rough pack. Their feet blister, rain soaks wool cloaks, and sometimes hunger whispers louder than prayer. Yet mile after mile, they keep walking as if the road itself answers questions no priest can. The exile's journey history also remembers those who did not choose to leave. The Roman poet Ovid, exiled by Emperor Augustus to the cold shores of the Black Sea. There he wrote letters home, lines trembling with loneliness and regret. Lord Sen-no-Rikyū, the tea master, ordered to end his life by the warlord Hideyoshi, whose last quiet tea ceremony was, in itself, a farewell walk. Exile turned familiar roads into memories, the taste of home into longing. Yet even in exile, some found strange clarity. When all else is lost, wrote Ovid, one still has thought. Why we wonder, why do humans, in every age, step away from home? sometimes to escape pain, sometimes to seek forgiveness, sometimes to find what cannot be named, and often because moving the body moves the heart, step by step, mile by mile. The road teaches patience, humility, and the quiet truth that even the longest journey begins in uncertainty. Moments of grace on the road. Not every day on the pilgrim's road was hardship. There were dawns when mist lifted to reveal fields of wildflowers, evenings when a stranger shared bread, firelight softening weary faces into quiet companionship. Sometimes grace arrived as small things, a child's laughter, a wayside shrine, a cup of fresh water on a dusty day. These moments did not erase fear, but made it easier to bear. Pilgrimage's inner path pilgrimage was not only geography. Churches taught that each mile walked outside mirrored a mile walked within, leaving behind old anger facing hidden shame. Discovering the possibility of mercy, the Stoics, too, spoke of life as a journey whose destination was wisdom rather than distance. In Zen, monks swept temple paths each dawn, an outer task meant to reveal the mind as inner dust. Modern roads, ancient longing, and now, centuries later, we still walk through airports, along forest trails, city streets at night. We call it travel, hiking, running, but something ancient remains, the hope that moving forward can quiet a restless mind, the hope that somewhere beyond the next bend lies an answer, or at least a gentler question. The fear that walks beside us, yet even on the road, fear keeps pace. What if I do not belong anywhere? What if I return unchanged? Pilgrims long ago knew this fear. They carved scallop shells into their walking staffs, not as charms against danger, but as reminders. All roads lead back to the self. Return and remembering at journey's end, many pilgrims return home. Their house is unchanged, the streets the same. Yet the heart, shaped by road and sky, felt subtly different, slower to anger, quicker to gratitude, quieter in doubt. They had learned the world does not promise safety, but walking it with open eyes brings unexpected peace. Reflection for you so tonight. Ask gently, what road have I walked, even if only in thought? What fear still keeps pace beside me? What grace, what small kindness have I found along the way? Perhaps your journey need not be far. A quiet evening walk, a page read slowly by lamplight, a moment of silence before sleep. The road continues even as the body rests, and though fear may join us on the path, so too can hope, and the quiet knowing that walking forward is itself an answer. Closing whisper tonight, may you rest like a pilgrim at dusk, feet weary, mind quieter, heart open to tomorrow's uncertain road. And if fear greets you again at dawn, may you meet it not as an enemy, but as an old companion, who walks beside but need not lead. Good night. Come closer once more, dear listener. We have walked the roads of pilgrims, sat beside rulers in fear, watched hermits in solitude. Now let us step into the quieter spaces of the human heart, where love begins, where loss follows, and where ritual gives shape to sorrow and hope alike. First farewell in every age, humans have loved and feared to lose what they loved. A Roman woman placing fresh laurel on a lover's grave, whispering words only marble hears. A medieval widow lighting candles for a husband lost to plague, smoke curling upward in thin threads of prayer. A Japanese poet writing brief verses folded and left at a shrine. Before this dawn, your shadow walked beside me, now only mist. Why rituals were born. Across centuries, every culture shaped rituals around parting, lighting incense. So words unspoken might rise with smoke pouring water on graves. So the living might refresh the dead, carving names into stone, so forgetting might be delayed. These rituals did not promise to banish pain. They offered instead what philosophers called consolation. Wait, hold grief gently rather than be crushed by its weight. Philosophy meets mourning, the Stoics taught. Love deeply, yet remember all is borrowed. Buddhist monks reminded mourners, this too, like morning dew, will fade. Yet neither tradition asked us to feel nothing. Rather, they taught to love without demanding eternity, and when loss came, to weep but not be destroyed. A medieval night vigil, imagine a stone chapel, candles guttering in cold air. Family and neighbors keep watch beside a body wrapped in linen. They pray, sing quiet hymns, tell stories of the life just ended. Dawn will come and the body will go to earth. Yet through this night vigil, grief is spoken, shared, made less solitary. Japanese tea bowl in Japan, cracked tea bowls were not discarded. Instead, they were repaired with gold lacquer, a practice called kintsugi. A fracture remained visible, yet the bowl was made more beautiful for it. So, too, with hearts broken by love or loss, philosophers taught, do not hide the crack, mend it with care, and let it shine. What remains after loss when the funeral ends, candles go out, mourners return to daily tasks. Yet love leaves traces, letters folded in drawers, a melody that brings sudden tears. Habits learned from the one who has gone, these quiet inheritances outlive stone monuments. Modern love and ancient shadows we too still seek ritual after heartbreak or loss, writing unsent letters, lighting birthday candles for someone no longer here, keeping a shirt that still smells faintly of them. Ancient or modern, the impulse is the same, to speak love's echo into silence. Fear and love entwined, philosophers knew to love is to accept fear. Fear that tomorrow may take them away. Fear that we may fail them while they are here. Yet the answer was never to harden the heart. The answer was to love, knowing fragility makes love precious, not pointless. Reflections from the past. Seneca writing to a friend mourning his son, the love you felt was never wasted. What was given remains in you. A Zen monk, mourning his master, wrote, he is gone. Yet when I sweep the garden, his step walks beside mine. An invitation for tonight, so, dear listener, as the night deepens, ask softly, who have I loved and feared to lose? What small ritual might let that love breathe even now? Can I see grief not as proof of weakness, but as a tribute to what was real? Rituals do not cure grief. They give it form so it may live beside us without drowning us. And when dawn comes, love remains, though changed, like gold along a mended crack. Closing whisper tonight, may you remember love given and love received. May you name your fears gently as part of loving, not its enemy. And may tomorrow bring not forgetting, but a softer way to carry what was, and what still lives quietly in the heart. Good night. Come closer once more, dear listener. The hour grows late. Stars will silently overhead, unseen yet ever present. Tonight, let us step softly into the dim spaces between wakefulness and sleep, and ask why, across centuries, humans have tried to read truth in dreams. The ancient world of dreams, imagine a temple of Asclepius in ancient Greece. Stone walls white in moonlight, perfumed smoke drifting upward. Inside, pilgrims lie wrapped in linen, waiting for sleep to bring visions. By dawn, priests gather the dreamers' whispered memories, seeking signs of cure, guidance, or hidden truths. To them, dreams were not random flickers, but a secret language of gods and fate. Egyptian dream books in Egypt, scribes kept dream manuals, a crocodile in a dream. Danger from an enemy, eating figs. Good fortune, sailing a boat. A journey or rebirth. These books were part superstition, part hope, an ancient attempt to make the unknown night a little less frightening. There's a sacred space beyond dreams. The very darkness of night held power. Romans spoke of Nox, the goddess of night, as both feared and honored. Japanese poets called midnight the hour of true words, when masks fall and hearts speak softly. Medieval monks rose before dawn to chant in candlelit cloisters, believing the night was a bridge between earth and the divine. We still dream. Modern science tells us dreams help the brain process memory, emotion, and stress. Yet even knowing this, we still wake sometimes, heart quickened by a fragment of dream, and wonder, what did that mean? Why did I see them? Is someone trying to tell me something? Perhaps deep down we still share the ancients' hope that sleep reveals truths hidden by daylight. Dreams of rulers and hermits. History is full of dreams that change lives. Emperor Constantine's vision of a cross before battle, a hermit dreaming of a lotus blooming in snow, inspiring years of meditation, medieval knights dreaming of the Virgin Mary, then riding to distant shrines. True or not, these stories shape choices, journeys, even wars. Night and vulnerability. Night is when walls lower, the shogun in silk, the senator in marble halls, the pilgrim on dusty roads. All must, eventually, lie down, eyes closed. Unguarded, sleep is the great equalizer. Ruler and peasant both surrender to its tide. And in that surrender, fear often stirs, yet so does hope, memory, and quiet longing. By night frightens and comforts, darkness hides danger, animals, enemies, the unknown. Yet darkness also softens sharp outlines, makes the noisy world gentle. A poet once wrote, by day, my mind shouts, by night, it listens. Night brings fear, yet also reflection, tenderness, even forgiveness whispered to oneself in darkness. Modern dreams, ancient questions today. Our rooms glow with phone screens and city light. Yet we still drift each night into the private theater of the mind. We still wake remembering faces long gone, places never seen. And quietly we still ask, Was it only memory or something more? A moment of reflection for you so, dear listener, before sleep fully takes you. Ask softly, what dream lingers with me tonight? What fear, hope, or question might it carry? Can I welcome even strange dreams, not to control them, but to listen? Remember, even if meaning is hidden, the act of noticing brings gentleness to the restless mind. Closing whisper tonight, may dreams come softly, as prophecy or warning, but as gentle mirrors of your own heart. May fear visit quietly, only to pass, and may morning find you lighter, rested, and quietly curious for what the next night might bring. Good night. Come closer, dear listener. Tonight, the road brings us to the quiet circle of firelight, the oldest classroom, the first sanctuary, the place where words became warmth. Let us sit together at the edge of this imagined fire and remember why night and story have always walked hand in hand. The circle at dusk long before temples, scrolls, or books, humans gathered as dusk fell. Crackle of flames pushed back the dark, shadows danced on stone walls. Children leaned against elders, hunters, weavers, and wanderers drew close. Fear of the night, of unseen predators, and spirits softened in the shared glow and into that fragile warmth. Someone spoke, listen, let me tell you what happened long ago. Why we told stories. Stories kept fear at bay by naming it, explaining it, giving it shape. They taught where danger hid in the forest, which plants could heal, why the sun rises, why rivers flood, why seasons change, and beyond survival stories whispered. Who we are, where we came from, why we matter. Power of the spoken word, no two tellings were the same. An elder's voice cracked with age, a young storyteller added laughter and gesture. Stories flowed like water, shaped by teller, listener, place, and night, yet always. They held deeper currents. Hope, warning, courage, forgiveness, fire as threshold in many cultures. Fire itself was sacred, a living bridge between this world and the unseen. Greeks offered flame to Hestia, goddess of the hearth. Zoroastrians kept temple fires burning day and night, symbols of truth and purity. By firelight, words seemed to gain weight, promises felt deeper, silence itself became part of the story. Night as keeper of secrets by day, tasks ruled, hunting, weaving, trading, farming. At night, hands rested and minds wandered. In darkness, stories touched things daylight avoided, love lost and found, betrayal forgiven or avenged, death, and what might lie beyond it in this way. Night became not only time for fear, but also for truth. Philosophy at the hearth, even philosophers spoke by firelight. Stoic teachers gathered students. In courtyards lit by oil lamps, Zen monks shared cones, paradoxes to unsettle the mind beside. Winter hearths. Socrates walked Athens by day, yet many of his deepest conversations happened at dinner tables after dusk. The comfort of story fear softens when shared. A child hearing an ancestor's bravery learns courage. A widow hearing a story of lost love learns she is not alone. The flame flickers, shadows move, yet the story stays, gentle proof that loss, fear, and hope are as old as humanity. Modern fires. Today, our fires burn behind glass, screens glowing in darkened rooms. Yet the impulse is the same. We gather round voices, podcasts, videos, audiobooks. We share stories to understand what troubles us. We listen at night. When distractions fade and hearts are softer, stories as night companions at night. The mind replays regrets, fears, unspoken hopes. A gentle story does not silence these thoughts. It sits beside them. Like an old friend, it says, I have seen darkness too, and yet here we are, breathing still. The storyteller's gift, the best stories do not promise certainty. They offer, instead, companionship, reflection, a moment when fear loosens its grip, and sometimes a quiet question that lingers long after the flame fades. A reflection for you so tonight, dear listener, as your own fire, real or imagined, burns low. Ask softly, what story have I carried too long, unspoken? What story might comfort me if told gently? And can I listen to my own fears as I would listen to a friend with patience, not judgment? Closing whisper tonight, may your fears sit quietly by the fire's edge. May stories, ancient or your own, keep you company, and may dawn find you not without fear, but warmed by understanding and gentler to yourself. Good night. Come closer, dear listener. We have walked through ancient roads, stone cloisters, moonlit forests, and firelit circles. Now, as night nears its end, let us pause on the quiet threshold where darkness yields to light, and ask why light and dawn have always felt sacred to the human heart. Between worlds and many cultures, dawn and dusk were called the thin places. moments when the veil between seen and unseen felt softest. Birdsong at first light, the hush as sun dips below the horizon. At these edges, the mind grows quiet, neither fully waking nor fully dreaming. Ancient rituals of dawn, Egyptian priests greeted dawn with prayers to Ra, reborn from the underworld. Hindu devotees offered water to the rising sun, asking for clarity and courage. Zen monks bowed to the first light, sweeping temple paths as the sky turned pale. To greet dawn was to welcome life's renewal, however uncertain the day ahead. Twilight, the gentle farewell at dusk, candles were lit, doors closed, and prayers whispered, "May we see another morning." Romans marked twilight with the vesper bell, calling the city to pause. In medieval monasteries, Compline, the last prayer before sleep, reminded monks of mortality, but also of trust that what was unfinished could rest until tomorrow. Why thresholds matter, philosophers taught. Beginnings and endings reveal what words alone cannot. The Stoics spoke of dawn as a moment to prepare the mind for uncertainty. Buddhists saw twilight as a reminder that nothing, joy, fear, grief, remains unchanged. At these edges, the heart remembers it cannot control tomorrow and learns gently to let go. Modern mornings and evenings, even now, we feel it. The quiet hope in morning coffee steam, the reflective hush of city lights blinking on the small ritual of phone turned face down before sleep. Moments that ask us, what will I carry forward? What might I set down? Twilight reflections for you so tonight, dear listener, ask softly, what do I wish to let rest with the night? What small hope might I carry into dawn? Can I greet tomorrow not as something to conquer, but something to meet gently? Remember, it is not strength to never fear the dawn, but tenderness to welcome it anyway. The night's gift through darkness, firelight, dreams, and silent roads we have walked together. Fear remains, yet it need not rule. And dawn, though still unseen, waits quietly, as it always has, closing whisper as this long night's journey nears its end. May you rest with kindness toward yourself. May you remember, fear visited ancient kings and hermits alike, yet so did hope. And may tomorrow find you softer, slower, and gently curious for what day might bring. Before you drift fully into sleep, a quiet invitation if tonight's journey brought you calm. If these old stories and reflections kept you gentle company, consider subscribing, so we may walk together again. Share this with someone else who might need a softer night. And when you wake, tell me in the comments what part of tonight's path stayed with you until then.